Pope Francis has appointed 21 new cardinals, many of whom are key figures in his reform agenda. They come from 5 continents, ranging from 44 to 100 years old in age. They include a Peruvian bishop who strongly backed his crackdown on abuse, and 2 Africans, one from Algeria and the other from Ivory Coast. There hasn't been an African pope, but it's a possibility in the church, and I think we have to make it open to that, so that the church can get out of its barriers. You see, Pope Francis insists a lot on an open church, where we don't make walls, we don't build walls, but we build bridges to meet people. And I think that this eventually, which is not necessarily a demand, if this eventually were to happen, the universal church would have to be ready to take it on. Pope Francis's pick of cardinals partially reflects those who are from overlooked dioceses, rather than the custom of systematically promoting archbishops from large prestigious dioceses such as Milan or Paris. Scenes of smoke spreading across Maputo after tyres were burnt and roads blocked on Friday evening by angry supporters of presidential candidate Venancio Mondlane, who are contesting the October elections. These soldiers show strength, and they show that they are with us. They keep their faces covered because, as they say, they are afraid of the superior order, so they wear masks. But when they arrive, they say, "We are with you. We support the same cause." My protest isn't vandalism. No, I'm concerned with the future of the young people. What's going to happen to them? What's going to happen tomorrow? That's what's important to me. According to police, at least 5 people were killed and 3 seriously injured in protests across Mozambique, including Maputo, Nampula and Zambezia. You take a person to jail, a person who is just holding a simple demonstration. Why do you need to take that person off to the police? Local NGO platformer El Toro Decide said on Friday that at least 88 people died during the demonstrations challenging the election results.
Developing news now from overseas, we've learned 2 sailors aboard USS George Washington have died within a span of 3 days. This happened the same week the ship arrived at its new home port in Japan. 10 on your side's Brett Hall has been looking into this. Brett, what do we know?
Well, Regina, according to an email obtained by Stars and Stripes, that's a military publication, one of the sailors was actually found dead on a base hotel room the day the ship did arrive in Japan. The other found 3 days after that. The sailors have been identified by Stars and Stripes as Petty Officer 2nd Class Collier Burnett Condon and Seaman Dimitri Isaac Morales. Both were described as being unresponsive when they were found. Condon found in his hotel room on base November 22nd. He was an electrician's mate from Texas. Morales was an electrician's mate too. He was found off base in Yokosuka on November 25th. We understand grief counselors and support services are being made available to the crew. And unfortunately, it's not the first time we've had to say those words in connection to this ship. 9 sailors died by suicide between 2017 and 2022 when the ship was in an extended refueling at Newport News Shipbuilding. Now we have reached out to the Navy for more information. We are waiting to get that information, and we'll bring it to you when it becomes available. Stephanie?
The sailing race on Sydney Harbour has taken a horror turn with 1 man dead after what appears to be a freak accident off Bradley's Head.
He suffered a catastrophic chest injury when 2 yachts collided, his crew unable to save him.
A twilight harbour race turns to tragedy. A yacht motors into Rushcutters Bay, on board a 51-year-old man dead and a crew in shock. Police say the 2 boats collided off Bradley's Head around 6:30 last night. A man on board the Pendragon suffering serious chest injuries, the rest of the crew performing CPR, but he couldn't be saved.
They left it like almost sunset and apparently there's a fatality. 2 boats crashed into one another on leaving.
Multiple police, ambulance all heading towards the water.
With detectives also called in to interview the crew. Both skippers were taken for mandatory testing while the two yachts were seized for mechanical assessment as police try to determine if anyone was at fault or if this crash was just a devastating accident. 7 News understands the two boats involved were competing in the Royal Australian Navy Sailing Association's weekly twilight race on a packed Sydney harbour.
There's quite a bit of activity, Peter. Talk about Friday afternoon congestion.
With at least 3 races starting around 5 o'clock, including the Cabbage Tree Island race, a qualifier for the Sydney Hobart.
Oh, we're away then.
Tonight, the tight-knit harbour sailing community is rallying together after losing one of its own. Taylor Aiken.
The storm Dara has wreaked havoc across the United Kingdom and Ireland. The storm, accompanied by winds of up to 93 miles per hour, has created pre-Christmas chaos. The storm Dara's fury has been felt across Wales, England, Scotland, Northern Ireland and Ireland, leaving a trail of power cuts, travel chaos and destruction. A rare red alert for high winds has been issued by the Met Department, covering parts of Wales and southwest England overnight. The strong gusts knocked out the power for nearly 86,000 homes across England, Scotland and Wales. In Northern Ireland, thousands more were left without electricity, but at least about 400,000 in Ireland suffered outages. The Dara is in fact the 4th named storm this season, coming just 2 weeks after the storm Bert caused devastating floods in Wales. With flood warnings still in place and heavy rains expected to continue, the storm's aftermath remains a challenging situation for many.
Oh, easy. That was a bit roller coaster. Hey, where are you going? It's over here, mate. Fair play. That was a very sudden gust of wind that caught them out there. But well handled and well saved up until this point. Bosh! Yep. That's how you do it.
going to go. It nearly went through the storm units. It's going to go this time. Wind gust so far, 35 miles an hour. Durham in Wales, 92 miles an hour. That's the biggest cross-country line. Locally, West Kingston, 55 miles an hour earlier this morning.
An unknown disease has claimed 143 lives in southwestern Congo province in the Democratic Republic of Congo this month. Local authorities report flu-like symptoms in the victims, including high fever, severe headaches. Women and children seem to be the worst affected by this mysterious disease. A medical team has been deployed to the health zone to collect samples and identify the disease. The situation remains dire. Lack of medicines in this rural region is leading to many dying in their homes without treatment. Civil society leader calls the situation extremely worrying as infections continue to rise. The World Health Organization confirms it had alerted the country's authorities last week about the illness and is now working with Congo's Public Health Ministry to investigate. This comes as the country is already battling an mpox epidemic with over 47,000 suspected cases and more than 1,000 deaths reported.
The European Union and Mercosur create one of the largest trade and investment partnership the world has ever seen. We're taking barriers down and we are allowing investment in. We are forming a market of over 700 million consumers. And this partnership will strengthen entire value chains. It will develop strategic industries. It will support innovation, and it will create jobs and values on both sides of the Atlantic. And to our farmers, we have heard you, listened to your concerns, and we are acting on them. This agreement includes robust safeguards to protect your livelihoods.
Let's now shift our attention to what is happening at this moment in France. The President-elect of the United States of America, Donald Trump, received a pretty warm welcome by the French President Emmanuel Macron at the Champs-Élysées Palace. Now, Emmanuel Macron has in fact hosted the three-way talks with the Ukrainian counterpart Volodymyr Zelensky and Donald Trump. And these are some live images that we are getting straight out of Paris. And you can look at the leaders there. Emmanuel Macron flanked by Donald Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky. Interesting to note the body language as the three leaders interact with each other. And it now remains to be seen as to how this equation, of course, proceeds from here. These are live images that we're getting from the Élysée Palace. The Notre Dame Cathedral has been renovated, so leaders from around the world have been invited to Paris for this ceremony of again opening up the Notre Dame Cathedral after the renovation process. And Donald Trump is making his very first visit to any foreign nation since he was elected the President of the United States of America in the elections last month. He, of course, takes charge officially as the President next month. But before that, behind the scenes, Donald Trump has been really active in pushing forth the contours of his diplomatic activities, and this is going to be interesting to watch out as to how Donald Trump will, of course, be in many ways looking at a number of many different issues which of course plague the world. He's meeting the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. How much support will the United States of America under Trump be willing to lend to Ukraine is something that will be watched very closely. Notre Dame is officially reopening after more than 5 years since it burnt down in that very terrible incident. Now, other guests include the likes of Dr. Jill Biden. Joe Biden is, of course, not there, but Jill Biden is present. The King and the Queen of Belgium are there. You also have the Prince of Wales, are some of the other important dignitaries who are visiting the Champs-Élysées for the reopening of the Notre Dame Cathedral. These are live images that are being beamed straight from Paris. Now, the 800-year-old cathedral and 1,200 oak trees had to be found to replace the timbers of the 800-year-old cathedral. About 40,000 square meters of the stone was cleaned up, with experts detecting tiny features in the original stone, like certain fossils that helped them to determine the geographical origin for the replacement stones. Now, the Syrian rebel forces claim that they've surrounded the capital city of Damascus, while the Syrian Defense Ministry has denied any retreat from the capital city. Now, the impact of this is, of course, being felt far beyond Syria's borders. The rebel groups, including an Islamist-led alliance, say that they've entered into the final stages of encircling the capital city of Damascus after seizing key towns close to the capital. Damascus, which is the political and cultural heart of Syria, is vital for President Bashar al-Assad's control. This is the last major stronghold of the government in the West, and its fall would deal a severe body blow to Assad's government. If the rebels succeed in capturing the capital, this could effectively unravel the remaining government control, potentially leading to collapse and further chaos. The Syrian government, however, has dismissed all of these claims by the rebels, with the defense ministry asserting that the Syrian forces remain in complete control throughout Damascus. Meanwhile, hundreds of Syrian soldiers have reportedly crossed over into Iraq in the wake of the offensive. The Iraqi security sources say that as many as about 2,000 troops, including the wounded soldiers, entered through the Al-Kham border crossing. Now, the American President-elect Donald Trump has said that the United States of America should not get involved in the Syria war, while the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has said that Syria must not be allowed to fall into the hands of terrorist rebels who are fighting the forces of Moscow's ally, President Bashar al-Assad.
It's inadmissible to allow the terrorist group to take control of the lands in violation of agreements which exist, starting with the UN Security Council Resolution 2254, which strongly reiterated sovereignty, territorial integrity and unity of the Syrian Arab Republic. Now, in response to the rising threat, Hezbollah has increased its presence in Syria. The Iran-backed militant group has deployed about 2,000 fighters in the Qusayr region close to the Syria-Lebanon border, although Hezbollah claims to have not engaged directly in the recent battles. Now, the group has positioned its forces to protect its strategic interests along the border. The cities of Aleppo and Hama have already fallen to an Islamist-led rebel alliance, while Dara fell to the local armed groups, according to the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights. So as rebel forces continue to gain ground, the United Nations has said that at least about 370,000 people have been displaced by the fighting in Syria since the 27th of November.
Ex-Shin Bet chief Yoram Cohen has accused Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu of ordering him to eavesdrop on ministers and senior officers who were involved in major security events. Now, these allegations stem from a 2018 incident which are reportedly connected to the then IDF chief Benny Gantz. Cohen revealed that Benjamin Netanyahu asked him to use tools, including wiretapping, against ministers and security officials privy to sensitive security matters. He also criticized government's policy on ultra-orthodox draft laws. The allegations have sparked strong reactions. The National Unity Party leader Benny Gantz has claimed that the request reflects Netanyahu's criminal culture. Gantz further stated that he never leaks state secrets, even when his positions are rejected. Netanyahu's office has dismissed the allegations, labelling it as manufactured scandal. His office also defended his actions as legal and necessary to protect state secrets.
The fallout from the Melbourne synagogue firebombing has been deliberately set alight, of course, has extended overseas. Israel's Prime Minister has launched a scathing attack calling out the atrocious crime, while back home, former Treasurer Josh Frydenberg has written an open letter to the Prime Minister calling for change.
A clear line in the sand from one of Australia's allies. Unfortunately, it is impossible to separate this reprehensible act from the extreme anti-Israeli position of the Labor government in Australia. A scathing attack on the Australian government from Israel's leader after the suspiciously lit fire on the Adass synagogue in Melbourne's east on Friday morning. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu described the fire as an abhorrent act of anti-Semitism. I expect the state authorities to use their full weight to prevent such anti-Semitic acts in the future.
I respectfully disagree with Prime Minister Netanyahu on this matter. Ever since the October 7 attacks, the horrific October 7 attacks, the Albanese government has taken a range of strong actions to stand against anti-Semitism and to stamp it out from our community.
The fire tore through the Adass synagogue just after 4 a.m. on Friday. 2 members of the Jewish community were inside at the time. One person suffered serious injuries to their arm. People returning to the scene today to lay flowers, others taking a moment to pray and reflect. Former Treasurer and leading member of the Jewish community, Josh Frydenberg, has joined the growing anger over this latest attack, penning an open letter to the Prime Minister.
Prime Minister, how did you let it get to this? Where social cohesion in Australia has broken down, where the Australian Jewish community lives in fear, where anti-Semitism has become normalised. And when social cohesion breaks down, it's only a question of when another community, another minority group is targeted in the same way. The first thing the Prime Minister needs to do is he and his government need to declare yesterday's attack at the Adass synagogue a terrorist event.
Standing alongside Nova Peris, who days ago was locked down in a Sydney synagogue as protesters gathered outside. They called on the Prime Minister and his government to take immediate action.
How dare anyone attack a place of worship in this country? The Jewish people for the past 100-odd years have done nothing but build this country up. Have we forgotten the 8,000 Jewish people that have fought for the freedoms that we all enjoy in this country now? The Jewish people have done nothing but contributed to this country in so many various forms, and I cannot stand the hatred against Jewish people in this country.
The state government has committed $100,000 to assist in rebuilding the synagogue and to increasing police presence within the area. But for a community who no longer feel safe, this did little to ease their nerves. The synagogue remains blocked off and boarded up. No time frame yet on just how long it will take to rebuild. And in terms of those responsible for this heinous crime, well, that remains an ongoing investigation. This fire stoking the growing tensions between Israel and Australia. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying the government's anti-Israel sentiment is anti-Semitism. Escalating tensions between our leaders, doing little to quell growing fears within the Jewish community. Georgie Dickerson, Sky News, Melbourne.
It's pretty chaotic right now here in the halls of the National Assembly. The crowd is chanting, "Impeach Yoon Suk-yeol, the president of the country." An impeachment vote was supposed to take place. We're now hearing that the president's party, their lawmakers, left the chambers and abstained from participating in the impeachment vote, which could be a reason for the anger that we're seeing exhibited here by people holding up signs accusing the president of insurrection when he declared short-lived martial law earlier this week. Come look out here. Beyond these demonstrators, in the distance there, at the entrance to the National Assembly compound, police say tens of thousands of demonstrators have protested peacefully on a freezing cold night in Seoul. The president has very low approval ratings, and more than 70% of Koreans polled are in favor of impeachment. Meanwhile, the president's own ruling party, its leadership, has said that there's no way he can finish his term in office. This political crisis in Korea is far from over.